I never imagined he was a millionaire doctor until he was locked in my office. The moment he walked in, everything shifted. He was tall, with a perfectly tailored suit hugging his frame. It screamed sophistication. His eyes darted around the room, absorbing every detail with a hunger I'd never seen before. This wasn't just a patient. No, it couldn't be. I nervously shuffled the paperwork on my desk, fingers trembling. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced as I watched him. There was something both mesmerizing and terrifying about him. The air felt charged, electric. Before I even said a word, I could feel the tension building between us, thick like fog on a winter morning. My mind whirled with questions. Who was he, really? Why was he here, in this rundown clinic with peeling paint and flickering lights? He flashed a smile, and I saw a flicker of something beneath the surface. Was it despair? Regret? My name is Dr. Adrian Blake, he said, his voice smooth like velvet. I need your help. Dreams and horrors collided in that instant. There was an unmistakable intensity in his gaze, a magnetic pull. I felt desperate for the truth, that undeniable urge to dig deeper into the story that lay beneath his polished exterior. My life was already a kaleidoscope of challenges. My sister Hannah was sick, fighting a battle I feared she wouldn't win. I had been juggling bills and sleepless nights, drowning in responsibilities. My job barely paid enough to keep us afloat. But there was something about Dr. Blake that made me feel alive again, even if my world was falling apart. Could he be the key to rescuing my sister, or was he just another illusion like the rest? As he spoke, each word hung midair like a faint echo. I started to see waves of desperation behind his bravado, tales of sacrifice that sent shivers down my spine. The story unfolded: a diligent doctor turned millionaire, trapped in a web of dark secrets, accusations threatening to tear him apart. Each confession drew my attention tighter. Was he a hero or a villain? The thrill of the unknown fluttered anxiously in my stomach. Then, the moment struck. A loud bang echoed down the hall. Panic closed around us like a vice. I turned to see the door slam shut. The lock clicked, sealing us in. My heart raced. Were we trapped? I gasped as my mind filled with wild images: a scuffle, shadows lurking, voices threatening. His eyes met mine, wide with urgency. I saw determination swimming in his depths. What have you gotten yourself into, Dr. Blake? I whispered, uncertain whether I was shaking from fear or anticipation. His expression shifted, fear creeping in. You have no idea what's at stake. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air grew heavy with uncertainty, each tick of the clock, echoing like a countdown to some unseen disaster. My heart raced, caught in a chaotic rhythm that surged with adrenaline. Dr. Blake's eyes were locked on mine, searching for an answer, or perhaps a lifeline. I felt the weight of his fear commingling with my own, a truth we both struggled to face. What do you mean? The words slipped out, barely a murmur, tinged with a desperate curiosity, urging him to share the secrets buried behind his stoic facade. He glanced towards the door, panic flickering like the dim bulb above us, giving us brief glimpses of each other's vulnerabilities. There are people looking for me, people who won't stop until they find me. They think I have something that belongs to them. His voice trailed off, betraying a crack, a fracture in his carefully constructed armor. In that moment, I realized we were not just two souls caught in a moment of chaos, we were kindred spirits, bound by the weight of our battles. As the gravity of his situation pressed down upon us, I couldn't shake my lingering worries about my sister. Her health was waning, and I felt like a skeleton, hollow and trembling, desperately clawing for hope. Steeling myself, I took a step forward, breaking the invisible barrier. "What do you have? I can help you, but you need to trust me." My voice was steadier than I felt, a lifeline I desperately offered to him. He hesitated but then sighed, the breath escaping him like a wave finally breaking on the shore. "If I tell you, you need to promise me you won't get involved. You have enough on your plate." I shook my head. "No, you don't get to decide that for me. My sister is fighting for her life. I will do whatever it takes." Seemingly compelled by my conviction, he began to unravel the tale, his voice a whisper against the silence that I uncovered something information that could endanger lives. "It involves a group that I once called colleagues. They have turned into something sinister, indistinguishable from the very people they are supposed to help. I realized too late that they would do anything to keep their secrets buried." His eyes widened, filled with shadows of the past. "I can't let them harm anyone else." But fear choked my breath, a dark tendril of anxiety slithering through the corners of my mind, weaving around the threads of my existence. It didn't matter that I had woven a fragile sense of safety in my life, all threatening to unravel. "Your sister, what's her illness?" He looked at me then with a mixture of concern and urgency, a connection sparking between us, rising above our circumstances. A rare condition. "We are running out of options," I whispered, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. Maybe you could help her." A flicker of hope ignited in his eyes, gone as quickly as it came. "I want to, but am not a miracle worker. I could lose everything, and the thought of my sister, of her fragile body hanging by a thread, propelled me forward." "And what about you? You can't hide forever. Let me help you fight back." But before he could respond, a loud rattle broke the silence, and I jumped, heart slamming against my ribcage. The doorknob shook violently, the sound seeping in like cold dread. Panic flared in Dr. Blake's eyes, and we exchanged an unspoken agreement. "Hide," he commanded, his voice low, as he moved to the side of the desk, pulling me down with him in a crouched position. The darkness enveloped us, and I held my breath, praying that whoever or whatever was outside wouldn't find us. The door creaked, and I could hear muffled voices, creaking footsteps that sent tremors of fear through my body. It was a cruel twist of fate, one moment filled with the hope of connection, the next teetering on the edge of some unknown terror. Then, through the fear and chaos, I felt his fingers clasp mine tightly, grounding me amidst the rising tide of uncertainty, and although it was unnerving, it also warmed my heart. A single thought glimmered through the turmoil: perhaps, together, we could confront our demons head-on. But just as I opened my mouth to speak, a familiar voice floated through the doorway, Hannah's voice, strained and weak. "Lila, I need you." My heart plummeted into a chasm of fear, disbelief and despair converging into one aching knot. How was she here? I didn't want her to see me like this, wrapped in the chaos of a storm I hadn't chosen, a storm I desperately wanted to shield her from. The tension in the room crackled as I locked eyes with Dr. Blake, and realization dawned as if the world had spun too quickly and I was unable to keep pace. I had sworn to protect my sister, not to drag her into this dangerous fray. But I felt trapped, and there was no way to turn back now. "Lila." She called again, searching for me through the dark shadows, her voice a sliver of light trying to break through my encroaching darkness. And just like that, the very foundations of my resolve began to quake, revealing a chilling truth: I couldn't hide forever. The stakes had risen higher than either of us realized, and the path ahead loomed ominous and fraught with danger. We were standing at the precipice of both connection and catastrophe, and I was perilously close to a cliff that held the potential to fracture everything I had ever cared about. Would I be able to protect Hannah and help Dr. Blake at the same time? Would hope rise out of the darkness, or would it all spiral into a whirlwind that threatened to pull everything I knew into oblivion? The weight of Hannah's voice drew me from the shadows, a delicate thread tethering me to a world I desperately wanted to shield her from. My heart raced, instinct screaming for me to protect her, and yet, here I was, crouched in the dark with a man whose very presence threatened the fragile fabric of safety I'd clung to. The surrender in my chest twisted painfully, each pulse echoing the tumult of emotions as I hoped against reason that she wouldn't find me like this, caught in a narrative I didn't fully understand. Lila. Please, where are you? Her tone wavered, thick with a mixture of fear and desperation that made my throat constrict painfully. I felt torn between two worlds, each calling for my allegiance, both bleeding into one frightening reality. Doctor Blake squeezed my hand, a reminder of the possibility that loomed around us, but it felt hollow in light of my sister's unmistakable distress. I pushed to my feet, the adrenaline igniting a fire within me. Stay quiet, I whispered to him, my urgency acceptable because I needed him to realize this was about more than just our intertwined fates. This was about saving my sister. I crept towards the door, squinted eyes attempting to peer through the crack. The dim corridor stretched ominously into the recesses of the building, a place filled with doctors and nurses, yet the atmosphere felt thick with fear. Could Hannah muster the strength to make it this far? What had drawn her out of her bed, risking her already precarious health? Lila. She called again, the sound gripping my heart like a vice. I took a breath, steadying my racing pulse, and pushed open the door slightly, just enough to peek out without revealing our hiding spot. Hannah leaned against the wall, her frail form illuminated under the flickering lights. Pale, but searching, her big brown eyes flitted through the shadows, and I felt them lock onto mine. There you are, she breathed, relief flooding her features even as it twisted my gut with guilt. It was an unbearable blend of hope and despair, relief and dread. I stepped out, urgency coursing through my veins. What are you doing here? You shouldn't have come. The reprimand trembled at the edges, faltering under the gravity of her need. I heard you, she replied, her voice a fragile whisper. You didn't sound right. I wanted to make sure you were okay. Her gaze darted behind me, a flicker of recognition flaring in her eyes at Dr. Blake's presence. Hannah, this isn't safe. You need to go back, please. I could see the weariness etched on her face, the bags under her eyes a testament to countless sleepless nights spent in worry. It ripped a little more of my heart away. Instead of retreating, Hannah stepped forward, determination etched into her every movement. No. I can't just disappear again. I need to know what's going on with you. The fire that lit within her made me feel small, helpless, like I was on the outside of an insurmountable wall. And I heard you mention my illness. Is there something I should know? Her words hit me like an icy slap. The devastation I had been trying to hold at bay had crept forward. It's complicated, I began, but Hannah shook her head, her resolve unwavering as she pressed closer. I'm sick of being kept in the dark, Lila. The urgency in her voice flowed with an unexpected strength, defiance stirring in the depths I hadn't seen in her for a long time. If this is about me, I have a right to be a part of it. I hesitated, caught off balance by her defiance. How could I protect her while also letting her into the storm swirling around us? Dr. Blake, still hidden behind the desk, watched with keen eyes, seemingly contemplating the same dilemma. Hannah, please. Before I could finish, a loud thud resonated from down the hall, the sound booming like a thunderclap, followed by the barking echo of footsteps. It was a fierce reminder of the danger lurking beyond, stalking us with antithetical intent. My resolve fractured further as I felt panic overwhelm me. We need to get out of here. I turned, ready to grab Dr. Blake and usher Hannah back to safety, but the look on his face stopped me in my tracks. Lila, listen to me, he urged, his voice low yet commanding. You both need to go. I felt the sting of fear and guilt intertwine. And what about you? I couldn't let him sacrifice himself for us, not when the stakes were so impossibly high. Hannah gripped my arm tighter, grounding me as I fought the spiraling thoughts racing through my mind. I'm not leaving anyone behind, she declared resolutely, her eyes fiercely, a warrior's spirit that ignited a spark of bravery in my wavering heart. Behind me, Dr. Blake's expression shifted, a dawning realization creeping into view. This isn't a game, Lila. You both don't understand how dangerous it is, then tell me. Tell me what you're hiding. I urged, desperation lacing my tone. I needed raw truth now more than ever, a bond forged in the flames of our commonality, a fight against the odds. But just as he opened his mouth to respond, the door at the end of the corridor burst open, light flooding through, illuminating figures that were too familiar to Mephises I thought I had escaped. They moved with poise, intent and purpose, cutting through the darkness with cold, calculated steps. What do you think you're doing, Dr. Blake? One of them called out, a taunting edge sharpening the words as he stepped forward. Running away is something you're not going to achieve this time. My heart lurched painfully as I recognized the voice. It belonged to someone who once stood firmly on a pedestal in my world. My head whirled, and the fear rushing through my veins turned to disbelief, morphing into an existential terror I was unprepared to face. Hannah turned to me, confusion and horror dancing in her eyes. The revelation was a heavy blanket suffocating me as I processed the grim reality. Each tick of the clock no longer felt like a countdown to a disaster. I was caught in an avalanche, hurtling down a slope shackled to both hope and hopelessness, racing towards an inevitable collision. We were bound to confront the truth, the depth of our entanglement spilling into a chaos beyond our comprehension. And as I stood frozen in the moment, it became painfully clear, the circle of trust I'd attempted to build was under siege, a frail construct teetering on the brink of collapse. Lila, get in front of me, Dr. Blake commanded, the transformation in him palpably a protective instinct surfacing, not just for me, but for my sister too. Despite his dark past, he was willing to stand tall against the storm brewing, ready to shield us from the fallout. But could we face it together? Would the truth set us free, or would it plunge us deeper into the darkness threatening to consume all hope? The air thickened around us, charged with trepidation and the strange weight of revelation. I felt Hannah's grip tighten on my arm, her uncertainty spilling into me, winding tighter with each heartbeat. What's happening, Lila? She whispered, her voice barely above the chaos swirling around us. Dr. Blake shifted in front of us, the urgency in his posture palpable. You need to trust me, he said, the steadiness in his voice a stark contrast to the turbulence of the situation. He glanced back at us, warning etched deeply into his features as the intruders advanced. Stay close and don't say anything unless I tell you to. My heart pounded in my chest. The realization that the very reason I had sought refuge in the dark was now a part of something so deeply entangled with my past left me breathless. Each figure that stepped forward was a ghost from a life I had spent years trying to escape, a reckoning that echoed the cries of betrayal. The leading figure, a man I recognized but had hoped to forget, stepped closer, his expression a mockery of concern. You really thought you could sneak away from this? He taunted, his eyes glinting with a perverse joy. The smirk he wore felt like ice, slicing through the warmth of resolve I fought to maintain. Hannah, stay behind me, I urged, my voice trembling. She pulled closer, our bodies pressing tightly together in an instinctual show of solidarity. Dr. Blake, the man called, feigning politeness, it seems you've gotten yourself entangled in a rather unfortunate situation. He gestured dismissively to the door. Don't you think you owe it to your colleagues to explain why you're harboring these girls? Do you wish to put them in harm's way again? Every word struck like a whip, and I could see the subtle clenching in Dr. Blake's jaw as he faced his adversaries. The air crackled with tension, and I held my breath, sensing that whatever came next would ripple beyond this moment. Enough, Dr. Blake snapped, his voice low but firm. This isn't a game anymore. Hannah leaned in even closer, her warmth radiating through the fear that gripped me. What do they want from you? She whispered, her eyes wide with concern. Before I could formulate a response, the lead figure advanced, his gaze locked onto Dr. Blake. What they want, dear Dr. Blake, he leaned in, a cruel grin curling his lips, is control. And you're caught in the middle. Aren't you? The laughter rippled through the group, echoing off the sterile walls like a harbinger of an approaching storm. I faltered, glancing at Dr. Blake, searching for assurance. Yet all I found was a man complicated by choices made long before he ever stepped through the door of my reality. "They won't stop," he murmured just loud enough for me to hear, his eyes brimming with a mixture of regret and resignation. Not until everything is on the table did I felt my breath hitch as dread unfurled within my chest, realizing that we stood at the precipice of our entangled fates. Each moment of hesitation would peel away our last threads of safety. "What does that mean?" I could barely choke out the words. "Lila," Dr. Blake's warmth betrayed his growing fear, the precarious nature of our alliance hanging between us like the drawn string of a bow. "It means we may have to fight, but it also means you need to know the truth about your sister's condition." Hannah's grip faltered, and she searched my face. "Lila?" "It's complicated," I murmured, the weight of my own fears suddenly dwarfed by the ferocity of hers. I couldn't bring myself to explain, not now when the world had just shattered into shards of chaos. Then, the lead figure stepped forward, closing the distance, sinister intent flickering in his eyes. "Do you really think knowing would save you, little girl?" He sneered at Hannah, the cruelty spilling over like a tide that could drown us. "These games don't follow rules, but perhaps you'll find some temporary comfort in the dark truth." Before I could move, he raised his hand as if beckoning a storm of chaos around us, the looming question of control hanging heavily in the silence that followed. "Step aside, Lila." Dr. Blake's voice rang out, threatening to crack under the weight of hidden layers. I felt a chill creep up my spine, his words a harbinger of something I couldn't yet understand. The words echoed like a death knell, and my heart stopped. Step aside? Would he sacrifice himself for us? I took a step back, instinct threatening to unravel the tenuous pact we shared, but just as Dr. Blake prepared to speak, a sudden crash resonated from down the hallway. The barrage of footsteps halted, surprise etched on every face. And that was when I saw Hera's figure emerging from the darkness, her presence a veil of courage that defied the moment. "Stop!" she shouted, and the chaos stilled, the clarity of her voice slicing through the tension like a blade. My heart raced as recognition dawned. It was my third-grade teacher, Mrs. Anderson, someone I never imagined would weave her way back into my life like this. "Mrs. Anderson?" I whispered, confusion mingling with relief. "What are you doing here?" "Lila, you have to listen to me. This is bigger than any of us. Don't let them drag you into their mess." Her eyes flared with urgency, crafting a lifeline in this storm of uncertainty. And then, the unthinkable happened. A flicker of understanding passed between her and Dr. Blake, a shared connection hinting at histories entwined in ways far beyond my comprehension. The mystery was unraveling, exposing once again the jagged edges of our lives that had been kept hidden. The realization twisted my heart, combining trepidation with a sudden surge of hope. But in that moment, I could feel the fragile line of safety snapping. Because the truth was dawning on all of us, some battles were not meant to be fought alone. And just when I thought I could grasp the threads of control, an undeniable crash echoed across the corridor, signaling our impending doom. Whatever accusations lay ahead would threaten the fragile web of trust we had been spinning together. "Lila!" Hannah's voice rang out, a beacon pulling me back from the brink. I turned to see her face paling, realization dawning in her eyes, a deadly mix of fear and determination. My sister was no longer the fragile girl I'd tried to protect. She had become a warrior ready to face whatever lay ahead with a bravery that brought light even in the darkest of hours, and as the shadows of our past converged upon us, I could feel my heart racing once more, searching frantically for an answer as the world around us twisted into something unimaginable. Perhaps we would be drawn into this storm of truth and chaos, but one thing was clear: this was not the end. It was just the beginning of an even deeper battle. Before I could breathe, before we could react, the lead figure charged forward with wild intentions and everything fell into disarray. The cacophony of chaos erupted around us like glass shattering against stone, a dissonant symphony of alarm and dread. I instinctively reached for Hannah, pulling her back as Dr. Blake readied himself, his body a shield poised against the encroaching darkness. Mrs. Anderson stood firm, her presence both grounding and infuriatingly surprising. My mind raced, trying to process the gravity of this reality. How had we gotten here, and why had my childhood teacher become a player in this morass of intrigue? Get ready. Dr. Blake snapped, his voice ringing with authority as he stepped ahead of us. I could sense his vulnerability lurking beneath the surface of his bravado, but there was something fiercely protective in the way he moved. All at once, it struck me his was more than just a confrontation, it was a reckoning with the past we had all avoided. Lila, we need to go. Hannah's voice laced with urgency broke through my thoughts. I turned to face her, my heart caught in my throat. It was as if I could see the shifting tides within her, the fear intertwined with fierce determination. No, I whispered, a spark igniting inside me. We can't just run. We need answers. But the lead figure took advantage of our distraction, lunging forward. A sudden flash of movement caught my eye, a scattering of orderly chaos as Dr. Blake moved to intercept him. I could see the determination on his face as he squared against the man whose mere presence seemed to infest the room with malice. Mrs. Anderson's voice cut through the fray, powerful and commanding. You don't want to do this. You don't comprehend the consequences of your actions. Her words hung in the air, defiant against the turbulence that sought to engulf us. No, Mrs. Anderson, the lead figure replied, his voice dripping with disdain. The consequences are exactly what I seek. Fear coursed through my veins, churning like an angry sea. As I gazed at Hannah, I recognized something shifting within her, not the timid girl I had sheltered, but a force burgeoning with resolve. Stay close to me, I urged, pulling her toward the makeshift perimeter formed by Dr. Blake and Mrs. Anderson. The room felt constricting as I watched Dr. Blake and the intruder exchange tense words, the weight of unspoken histories crashing around us. Suddenly, the intruder laughed, a hollow sound that echoed disappointingly against the sterile walls. You think they can protect you? He sneered, directing his gaze toward me. You have no idea what you're up against, do you? No, but am determined to find out, I challenged, channeling the courage I didn't fully believe I possessed. His laughter faded, replaced by an unsettling stare that pierced through the dim light like a dagger. With a sudden shift, the lead figure lunged at Dr. Blake, and the moment splintered into chaos. The confrontation erupted into a grotesque ballet of desperation. Dr. Blake sidestepped, his movement spurred by something primal, while Mrs. Anderson seemed to surge with renewed energy, embracing the storm, but it was Hannah who captured my attention. I turned to see her, stripped of her fears, standing defiantly beside me. You can't take her, she shouted suddenly, her voice infused with a power that resonated against the walls. You will never take her. The raw conviction startled me, igniting a flicker of hope, a promise that we were not as powerless as we felt. The intruder hesitated, incredulous, as the air thickened with the palpable shift of energy in the room. I realized then that Hannah might wield a strength I hadn't yet recognized. Her voice carried the weight of our shared experience, our intrinsic bond. Then Dr. Blake lunged, tackling the lead figure with a primal ferocity. For a heartbeat, time stretched, each second a fragile thread, and I held my breath in anticipation. The two men sprawled on the floor, kicking and grappling like wild animals, their fight becoming an overwhelming tempest. Lila, help him. Mrs. Anderson urged, her own fight momentarily diverted as she wrestled with another figure trying to slip through the chaos. I felt the urgency thrumming in my blood. I stepped forward, ready to lend my voice, my strength, anything. But before I could react, there was a loud crack, and the world around us detonated. It took a moment for me to comprehend the sound, the shattering of something foundational. The lead figure, his expression twisted with rage, had reached for something hidden within his jacket, and in a flash of stark terror, I understood. He was armed. Lila, watch out. Hannah screamed as I felt the surge of adrenaline course through me, time slowing as instinct kicked in. I lunged toward Dr. Blake, who was grappling with the man, and in an instant, I realized that the path of this confrontation would not simply impact us in that moment, it could shatter the very essence of our lives and the secrets tethered to them. But before I could call out my warning, before my words could consolidate into action, another crash reverberated through the hall, this time a door being flung open behind us and a new figure emerged, like a specter from the shadows, demanding attention. Stop right there. A commanding voice sliced through the turmoil, arresting everyone's movement. I turned, heart thundering in my chest as the reality of this new presence solidified, plunging us all deeper into the shadowy abyss of our intertwined fates. The figure was familiar yet unexplored, a beacon of uncertainty with commands that could alter the course of everything. I held my breath, realizing that the stakes had just risen. Would this newcomer bring an end to the turmoil surrounding us, or would we plunge into yet another layer of battle in uncharted territory? With the chaos still swirling, I grasped for a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this was the revelation we needed, or maybe it was the final piece of a puzzle set to distort everything we thought we understood. Whatever it was, one truth loomed larger than anything else: this was far from over. The breath of silence that followed the commanding voice felt like a dam in a flood, holding back the tempest of chaos that had consumed us. I blinked away the confusion, trying to process the figure standing at the door, tall, imposing, with an air of authority that cut through the noise like a knife. It was David, the new team lead from the research firm I'd joined. Never had I imagined I would see his piercing blue eyes squarely focused on the scene before him, nor had I ever anticipated the level of unrest that would unfold on an otherwise ordinary day at work. Step away from him. David's voice rang out, steady and fierce. The tension that had wrapped around my heart began to unravel slightly, though dread still coiled tightly in my stomach. Was he friend or foe? Had he come to help us, or was he yet another layer of this convoluted game? Dr. Blake ceased his struggle mid-move, muscles taut as he lifted his gaze, his brow heavy with weariness. The intruder, on the other hand, was caught between threats, his expression morphing into one of incredulity and rage. The shift in power dynamics coursed through the room, and for a breathless moment, I witnessed the unveiling of what once might have been shrouded in uncertainty. Don't you dare think you can play hero here, David, the intruder sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. You have no idea what's at stake. The spark of tension ratcheted up as David took a step forward, unfazed by the threat. It doesn't matter what's at stake. What matters is ending this madness right now. No one has to get hurt if you just put down your weapon. His tone was calm, yet the undercurrent of resolve hinted at a deeper understanding than we had. Hannah clutched my arm, her nails digging in as she drew closer. Do you think he can help? She whispered, uncertainty lacing her voice. That I don't know, I murmured, hardly believing my own words as they slipped out. What was once a spark of hope was now bogged down with the crushing weight of fear and uncertainty. The battle was hardly over, everything felt precarious, teetering on the edge of a devastating plunge. I had a sudden impulse to reach out for Dr. Blake, a tether in this storm. But as I made eye contact with him, the intensity of our shared urgency rendered me momentarily frozen. To make matters worse, behind David, another shadow fell across the threshold. A woman stepped forward, her face illuminated by the flickering overhead lights. Sophia. My breath hitched. She had been absent from our group meetings for weeks, citing personal reasons. Her appearance now felt like a haunting echo from the past that I did not want to confront. David, don't. She warned, her voice trembling slightly, yet curiously firm. This isn't just about the moment in front of you. You don't have all the pieces. What do you know about this? The intruder challenged, eyes darting between David and Sophia. What secrets have you both kept from us? A moment of stillness hung above us, breath suspended in an eerie silence. All I could feel was time slipping between my fingers, the space around us teetering at the brink of collapse. In that fragile moment, I thought I caught a glimpse of vulnerability from Sophia, marking of pain stained on her features. The knowledge that she too was ensnared in this convoluted mess engulfed me with dread. What had she been forced to carry alone? Suddenly, amidst the tension, Dr. Blake's determination reignited. None of us has all the pieces, but together we can fight. This doesn't need to end. In before he could finish, the intruder, caught in the whirlwind of fear and fury, shifted yet again. A swift motion drew my attention, his hand disappearing behind Hyman. Unsettling sense of dread washed over me as I prepared for the worst. Get back! David shouted, thrusting himself between the intruder and the group, his body moving instinctively as he shielded us. I couldn't comprehend the rush of emotions that paraded through my mind, the terror of loss, the instinctual urge to protect, and the raw vulnerability that lay in facing the unknown, and then the gunshot erupted, its sharp sound ricocheting against the walls like a glass breaking into a million pieces. My heart plummeted, painfully aware that one of us could easily slip away forever. The chaos erupted again, screams intermingled with the desperate cries for safety. Hannah was directly beside me, her hands clutching my arm as desperation clawed at her. "What just happened?" she cried, her tears shimmering like shattered glass caught in a dying light that I selected my words carefully. "I don't know. But we have to." And then I saw him. The intruder had stumbled backward, surprise etched on his features, eyes wide as he crumpled to the floor. Time hung in the air, spinning so slowly I could hear my heartbeat, the pulse thrumming against the silence that followed. "David!" I gasped, horrified, not fully grasping what had transpired. It wasn't until I caught sight of David's face, contorted with the weight of fresh shock and pain, that I realized the truth. He was standing upright, but his body quivered from the confrontation, an almost imperceptible tremor of uncertainty underlined by an undeniable sense of relief. But soon, the reality began to weigh heavy as I saw the danger shift, looming closer than ever before. The intruder was down, but his absence would only invite further chaos. A stifling silence enveloped the room. I would not allow it to be the end of our reckoning, a reckoning that ran deeper than just this confrontation. We were destined to uncover the truths hidden in the dark recesses of our intertwined lives. In the dim light, I glanced at Dr. Blake and Hannah, then at David braving the shards of fear. We were far from finished. With the stakes at their highest, turmoil loomed, unresolved, as shadows curled around destinies yet to be revealed. Just as I opened my mouth to speak, desperate for more than empty promises of safety, a chilling laughter echoed from the shadows, a reminder that the darkness was far from vanquished. "You fool," a voice sneered, cutting sharply through the silence, each word laced with malice. "You think this is over? This is just the beginning." And with that, another moment shattered within the storm, our fragile unity obscured by the threat of greater things to come. As the mocking laughter hung in the air, a palpable tension gripped the room, twisting the threads of our trembling resolve. Dr. Blake's face turned ashen at the ominous echo, and Hannah's grip tightened painfully around my arm. It felt as if a ghost had slipped back through the door we had managed to lock, an uninvited specter breathing life into our worst fears. "Show yourself!" David roared, his authoritative voice reverberating off the walls, carrying a raw edge that almost made me believe he could chase away the shadows. The intruder was down, incapacitated, but the reminder that darker forces were still at play thrummed in our veins. "Why waste such energy, David? Your bravado is admirable, but naive. You have no idea what you've thrown yourself into." The voice jeered again, this time carrying a hint of disinterest, as if this game was merely a form of amusement. Hannah released my arm, her body vibrating with tension as she stepped slightly in front of me. "What do you want?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the tremors reflected in her eyes. The strength in her words caught me off guard, revealing a determination ill-suited to the chaos around us. "Control, sweet girl. We want control. Your naivete is delightful, really, but it blinds you to the truth. You are all pawns here, and the game is far from over." In that moment, I felt her fear radiating through me, merging with my own as I shared a look with Dr. Blake. He stepped forward, eyes narrowing defiantly. "We won't be intimidated by empty threats. You've already lost." Laughter erupted again, sharper, like shards of glass churning in a storm. "Oh, but you don't even know what the stakes are, do you? You think just because you have the upper hand this time that it magically secures your path? How foolish of you." David reached for his phone, a moment of determination to call for help slicing through the atmosphere like a thin blade. "I'm done playing games. If you truly think you can intimidate us." But right as he began tapping numbers, a flurry of movement caught my eye. A figure shifted in the corner where shadows pooled thick. Sophia stood against the wall, eyes wide with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. Was it fear or a recognition that echoed with deeper significance? "Stop!" she shouted, suddenly stepping forward as if tethered to a truth we all needed to hear. You have to listen. There's something you don't know. The sudden quiet was deafening, all eyes turned toward Sophia, whose fragile form emanated a mixture of trepidation and undeniable strength. This isn't just a random confrontation. The man on the ground, he's worked with our firm. He knows secrets about all of us. What kind of secrets? I asked, my heart racing, the very air shifting with the potential gravity of her words. The laughter faded into an eerie stillness, leaving only the pressure of unspoken truths curling around us. She took a deep breath, summoning courage I hadn't known she possessed. I can't explain everything now, but he's part of something much bigger. Decisions have been made that affect all of us, and if we're not careful, we're going to lose everything we've worked for. A dense silence followed, punctuated only by Dr. Blake's murmured disbelief. And you didn't think to tell us before now? We've been scrambling without knowing the whole story. I wanted to protect you. Sophia's voice cracked, revealing the depth of her struggle. I thought if I stayed away long enough, maybe I could find a way to keep you safe from whatever this is. But it doesn't matter now. We're all in danger. David clenched his fists as if trying to channel his frustration. We need to strategize. We can't just stand here waiting for the next move. If he's part of a bigger puzzle, then we've underestimated the depth of this game. His words ignited an ember of resilience within me, mingling with the dread that still threatened to choke us. We need to move quickly and decisively, I added, heart racing. We know they're watching. We can't let them control the narrative anymore. But just as a frail sense of unity began to form, the heavy shadows shifted, and another figure slipped into view, cutting through our moment of burgeoning hope. A familiar face, slightly bruised but undeniably alive. Max, our colleague who had gone missing weeks ago. Not so fast, he croaked, voice raw. You don't know the half of it. The room plunged back into anxiety, as we all exchanged bewildered glances. Max had appeared from the dark depths like a relic of another time, bringing with him not just his presence but a whole new tide of possibilities and dangers. Max, how? Was all I could muster, the insignificance of my question weighty against the shock of his appearance. You need to listen, he interjected, urgency flickering in his eyes. If they know you've asked questions, they'll come for you next. Soon. We can't wait any longer. As he delivered his warning, a chill hung in the air, a foreboding omen between us. The lurking danger had morphed from abstract threat to tangible reality, clawing at us as desperation intertwined with a sliver of hope. In that moment, I realized we were caught in a labyrinth we might not escape, where every whisper could be a step closer to salvation or doom. And as Max's eyes scanned the room, I felt an unexpected surge of determination unify our ragged hearts, but just as quickly, a new tension wrapped around us, pinning us into a corner. Did you really think you could escape, Max? The voice sneered from below, echoing through the chaos. They sent me to retrieve you, and retrieve you I shall by any means necessary. The finality of those words rang louder than any gunshot, sealing our fates in that moment. As the walls pressed in, frustration clawed at my throat, aching to burst free, and in that silence teetering on the edge of the abyss, every shred of hope I clung to brimmed with terror. The fight barely begun. Everything we believed was about to unravel, and I knew we had only just scratched the surface of the darkness that lay ahead. The air felt thick with trepidation as Max's revelation seeped into my mind, and I struggled to keep my thoughts anchored amidst the turmoil. The shadows in the room seemed to pulsate with the weight of secrets, their sinister laughter almost mocking our collective resolve. My heart raced, each thud echoing in the silence as reality settled in. We were ensnared in something unfathomable, and if we were to survive, we needed to unearth the truth, no matter how painful it may be. Retrieve me? Max's features twisted in confusion, assaulted by the echo of the taunting voice. You don't understand. They enough. David barked, cutting through the chaos. His eyes darted between the two of us, an unyielding resolve settling in. Max, we need to focus on getting out of here. If someone came for you, it's only a matter of time before. A sudden weight shifted from the darkest corner of the room, and our gaze snapped to the source as Dr. Blake took a hesitant step forward. We cannot ignore what Sophia just said. The secrets tie us together. Whatever they are, they're going to want them back, Hannah interjected, but how? What do we do with all this information? We're sitting ducks, maybe we shouldn't be here, Sophia whispered, a flicker of wild hope lighting her eyes. What if we leave? Find safety first, plan later, the idea ricocheted between us, igniting a fragile spark that belied our fear. But just as I was about to voice my agreement, I caught someone's movement in my peripheral vision that a soft thud echoed, and I spun around to find Dr. Blake clutching his abdomen, a bewildered expression twisting his face. I think I've been hit, he gasped, disbelief giving way to excruciating pain. Panic rippled through the group as we gathered around him. Stay still. What happened? I urged, my heart plummeting as I spotted crimson blooming on his shirt, dark and viscous against the pressing reality of our situation. Ambush, David muttered, lips pressed into a thin line as he crouched beside Dr. Blake. Someone must have slipped through. Max's earlier urgency came rushing back, hot and bitter. We can't stay. They'll return, and the stakes just skyrocketed. Dr. Blake, we need to get you out of here before I don't need to be coddled. Dr. Blake snapped, even as his face blanched. Just find a way out, but could we even move? The shackles of our fears weighed heavily on us as the realization of our newfound peril engulfed the room. The shadows seemed to conspire against us, a throbbing certainty that we were never meant to escape. Stay with me, I implored, my heart hammering as I looked at Dr. Blake, desperation seeping from every pore. I could feel a chilling sense of urgency igniting our grim atmosphere. Something otherworldly hovered just beyond our comprehension, and then, as if the universe heard my plea, a flash of light burst into the darkness, illuminating the room with stark clarity. All of us snapped towards the sudden brilliance that seemed to pour like molten gold through the cracks in the wall, shadows recoiling as trepidation gripped our hearts. Where is that coming from? Hannah whispered, voice trembling under the weight of the looming dread that I staggered towards the light, emotions cascading through me like wildfire. It could be our way out, I suggested, my conviction a thin veil of hope. Before I could reach the source, another echo turned our attention. The malevolent voice returned, thick with amusement. Oh, do take a step closer. You might find the light is not what it seems. The flickering brightness morphed, swirling in ghastly hues, illuminating the contours of our increasingly terrified expressions. Suddenly, I realized that every shadow and flicker in the room told a story, and every smirk lay a sinister truth waiting to unveil itself. Max, I shouted, urgency clawing at me. Do you understand what this light could mean? But he was growing pale, jaw tense as he shook his head, eyes locked on the shifting brilliance. I can't, it feels wrong. We should stay away. The room trembled with uncertainty, each breath a reminder of the ticking clock above our heads. In this moment, the lingering hope of escape collided violently with the notion that perhaps this light was a trap, a deception cloaked in false promise. Everyone, listen, David said suddenly, voice commanding. Whatever happens, we stick together. We can't afford to lose anyone else. But before I could nod in agreement, the shadows shifted once more, and new figures entered the space, their silhouettes merging with the flickering brilliance. My heart plummeted as I recognized their faces, our former colleagues, each wearing grim expressions. Welcome to the game, one of them murmured, eyes glinting under the unnatural light. We've been waiting for you. With those words, an avalanche of dread cascaded through my veins, a realization that shattered the fragile unity we had just begun to build. The stakes were higher than I ever imagined, and just when I thought the darkness was beginning to unveil its secrets, it threatened to swallow us whole instead. All at once, fear took root, intertwining with an overwhelming desire to uncover the truth, but I felt the walls closing in again, and as my thoughts spun out of control, I grasped that we were teetering on the foggy edge of fate. We were caught in a web spun not just by their hands, but by our choices, and it was a sentence that echoed starkly in my mind. I never imagined how deep the shadows would reach. The air was suffocating, thick with a tension that threatened to snap. Hannah pressed her body against the wall, her eyes darting between the familiar faces that emerged from the shadows and the blinding light that twisted eerily around us. It felt as if our lives had become a nightmarish puzzle, each piece agonizingly misaligned. "Welcome to the game," one of our former colleagues, Jenna, repeated with a sickly sweet smile. There was no warmth in her eyes, only a predatory glint that sent shivers down my spine. "You've done so well to arrive this far, but now the real challenges begin." As she spoke, my mind raced. What had happened to Jenna? To the rest of them? Months ago, we were a team, united by our aspirations and dreams. Now, they stood before us, transformed into twisted versions of themselves, puppets dancing on strings crafted by some unseen hand. David's voice broke through the din of my thoughts. "What do you want from us?" he demanded, his tone steady but underlined with the slightest tremor. A smirk played at the corner of Jenna's lips. "The choice is simple. Reveal your secrets, and perhaps we'll be kind enough to let you leave. Resist, and you won't leave this place alive." Doctor Blake remained on the ground, his breathing shallow, mirroring the panic that welled within me. "Sophia, we can't let them hold us hostage." His voice was a whisper, defeat heavy in every syllable, and I could feel the weight of despair pressing down on us. For a fleeting moment, I considered my options. Would I betray our collective trust to save ourselves? Just as the thought took root, a flicker of resolve ignited within me. We may have been on the brink of complete despair, but there was strength in our shared struggles, power in unity. "Listen," I said, stepping closer to Jenna, forcing myself to maintain eye contact. "You know we've always been in this together. You can't honestly believe you can sneak away the very essence of what made us a team. Don't you want to just go back to be who we were?" Another of our former colleagues, Malik, stepped forward, crossing his arms in an aggressive stance. "You talk about unity, but none of you have dragged your secrets into the light. How do we even know you're not in this together?" Max flinched at the accusation, and I could see guilt etching deeper lines into his face. "I swear, I never meant for things to turn out like this. I was only trying to protect. Hannah interrupted, voice cracking with anguish. "You think keeping secrets protects us? Look where that has led us. Secrets bind us here, Max. They keep us captive in our own personal hell." The room fell into a stifling silence, punctuated only by Dr. Blake's labored breaths. The revelation that we were ensnared by our own murky pasts hung ominously in the air. Would exposing our truths provide solace or unleash even deeper horrors? In that moment, an unexpected warmth brushed against my arm. I turned to find Sophia standing beside me, her eyes filled with unshed tears. "Two don't want to lose anyone, not to them or to our own fears." Her vulnerability inspired a flash of hope, as though a lifeline had been thrown into turbulent waters. What if we all shared something? Something we've kept to ourselves? I found myself suggesting, my heart pounding in my chest. Breaking through the facade might just be how we find our way back to each other. Jenna's taunting expression faltered for a split second, and I seized the opportunity. Each one of us has something that needs to be revealed. If we trust one another, perhaps together we can break these chains. Max's eyes met mine, flickers of regret dancing within their depths. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, he turned his gaze to the rest of the group, all unsure but with something akin to hope glinting in their eyes. I lost my father's trust a long time ago," he finally confessed, voice thin. "I thought hiding the truth would protect my family reputation." Jenna maintained an air of indifference, but tension rippled through the room. David interjected, "We are all feeling lost, but this environment and the secrets we hold have made us invisible to each other." He took a deep breath, every exhale laced with determination. "I lost my mother when I was young. She spent her life trying to shield me from the repercussions of her decisions. I thought if I did the same, I could save us all." The weight of his confession lingered, swaying like a pendulum, unraveling the intricate web of distrust slowly woven among us. And then one by one, each person became a thread of vulnerability, creating a tapestry exposed to the light. But as if sensing the shift in our unity, Jenna snapped back into dominance, her demeanor shifting ominously. How quaint sharing secrets. But remember, this isn't just passing the time. At that moment, the lights flickered rapidly, casting unsettling shadows against the insidious laughter that echoed off the walls. Oh, you think your sweet little confessions will save you? You're merely prey in this game. Complete the puzzle, or suffer the consequences. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream erupted somewhere beyond the walls, freezing the air and siphoning the warmth from our shared moment of hope. Everyone turned, eyes wide with terror, uncertainty sharpened into a relentless point. Keep talking, Jenna beckoned with a quiet malice, or perhaps we may learn to enjoy the sound of your desperate breaths. With the threat looming, fractures began to reappear in our fragile unity. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. The walls pressed closer, shadows swallowing the flickering light. The end loomed as the scream faded, leaving behind a chilling silence. Darkness clawed hungrily at the threads of trust we had just begun to weave, and I wondered if we could survive long enough to uncover the secrets that bonded user if all would be lost within the shadows again. I never thought any of this would happen. The darkness had wrapped around us, choking us with its weight as I struggled to keep track of the myriad of emotions flowing among the group. Jenna and Malik's prior camaraderie now felt like a distant echo, overshadowed by the revelations that threatened to tear us apart. The room felt alive with tension, and I could sense the clock ticking down to something unimaginable. Please, I urged, voice shaky but firm, if we can just push through this moment together, we may find a way to reclaim our lives. I looked at Dr. Blake, whose face was a canvas of pain and determination, a reminder of the fragility of our circumstances. All of us have suffered. It's time to stop hiding. But the shadows seemed to swell with disdain, a chilling laughter that echoed through the darkness. You have no idea how deep the rabbit hole goes, do you? This isn't merely about your secrets, it's about survival. Jenna's voice dripped with mockery, but there was an edge of something deeper, the relish of a predator ready to pounce. From the depths of my heart, I felt a familiar a raw courage bursting forth. We may not know everything, but we know enough to fight back. We didn't choose this game, but together we can decide the outcome. I could feel Hannah's hand slip into mine, her grip tightening. It was a simple yet profound gesture, a promise to stand united even as fractures threatened to splinter us apart. The glimmer of hope ignited something within each of us. It was clear that we couldn't afford to let fear write our endings. But we must act quickly, I added, the urgency behind my words propelling forward. Reveal your truths, whatever they may be. It's the only way we break free from these chains. Silence settled again, but this time it was one filled with the weight of realization. One by one, our former colleagues began to share. Each secret spilled was a shard of glass dropped softly onto the ground, painful yet somehow liberating. We learned of betrayals, hidden ambitions, and fraught pasts, the very stories that had now stitched together this web we inhabited. With every revelation, an unspoken understanding deepened between us. The moments of peace became filled with fragile hope, strings of humanity tying our brokenness together. Lila, Dr. Blake whispered, catching my gaze. There was a soft urgency, a plea hidden beneath the layers of pain. You need to tell them. They can help. You have to let them in. And just like that, the world around me shifted, forcing me to confront the fears that had long haunted me. I took a deep, trembling breath. My sister, Hannah, won't survive without medical assistance. I never wanted to involve anyone, but I need help. I'm terrified of losing her. Gasps reverberated throughout the group, the weight of my confession hanging like a fragile thread. Well, protect her, David spoke softly, his voice rich with sincerity. Whatever it takes. We can be your allies, but Jenna's laughter rang hollow, disdain rippling through her. Oh, sweet vulnerability, you think bonding together in shared fear will save you? Such naive thoughts won't protect you from the truth. The choices that got you all here remain your albatross. Suddenly, the shadows shifted, pulse racing as the lights dimmed again. I could feel the terror unfurling inside me, but a flicker of clarity surged in my chest. I needed to fight not merely for my sister's life but for the lives of everyone who had stood steadfast. It's time to reclaim our power. I spat, committing myself to this tumultuous storm of unraveling truth that I am done being afraid. Hannah declared, her voice breaking through the heaviness like a ray of sunlight penetrating the fog. She faced Jenna, fire blazing in her eyes. You think just because you have information on us, it makes you mighty? You're wrong. We are stronger as one. Just watch. A moment of pure silence hung thick between us, my heart soaring as the words ignited something vital in me. One by one, our declarations of strength rippled through the air, binding us in solidarity. No longer would we stand as scared participants in this cruel game. We were determined players, ready to rewrite the rules, but it was then just as I felt the weight of purpose shatter the chains around us that the shadows leapt forward. The familiar laughter echoed one last time, carrying a dissonance that shattered my belief. Oh, how delightful. You really think you can best me? You have sealed your fates. That I turned in horror, heart pounding as the laughter morphed into a cacophony of dark delight, gloating over the very hope we had begun to forge. I felt the air grow colder, dread washing over me like a wave. You think I come unprepared? This was never just a game to me, it's my livelihood, Jenna said, her once friendly face twisted with malice. Now face the consequences of your choices. Suddenly the ground beneath us trembled, blood roaring in my ears as the darkness erupted. Figures poured in through the doorways, emerging from the shadows, their faces etched with sinister purpose. But then something beyond my comprehension happened. Dr. Blake surged forth, rallying us with raw energy. Stand together, he shouted, eyes blazing. The group tightened into a protective formation, hearts beating in unison. We may be facing darkness personified, but something much brighter thrummed within us, unified against the tide. What I didn't expect, what ignited my spirit, came next. Hannah stepped forward, her courage igniting like a beacon. We are done living in fear. You won't take us, she declared, and suddenly the very walls of our reality began to shift. The shadows recoiled in the wake of her conviction, pulsating backward as if they understood the threat we posed. The brightness of our truth surged forward, illuminating the shadows that had only moments ago threatened to engulf us. In that critical moment, the world surged with clarity. We may not break free tonight, I murmured, heart racing as the shadows began to dissipate. But we will burn brighter and together realign our fates. No more holding back, and with that final act of defiance, the darkness fractured, swallowed by the strength conjured from the depths of despair. The grip of fear was severed, threads of hope connecting us. We were a ragged collection of wounded souls, but more so, we were a tapestry woven with resilience. As the last waves of darkness receded, leaving a shimmering light of dawn peeking through once collapsed shadows, I took Hannah's hand tightly in mine. Around us, the rest of the group stood resolute, gaining strength in one another. It suddenly dawned on me that perhaps this was the resolution we needed, not merely to break free of the clutches of our fears but to rise together, renewed by the fierce power of shared truth. We had battered the storms, faced our hidden traumas, and emerged transformed. And no matter the shadows that lingered beyond the horizon, as long as we stood united, there was infinite hope, a light shining through the darkness, reminding us of the beauty born in courage. And in that moment, as tears streamed down my face, I whispered the one thing I knew to be true: from this day forward, nothing will silence our light.